Ladies and gentlemen, our moderator for this morning, Ms. Linnell Malze, Director of Innovation at the Ministry of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training.
Honorable Sean Edward, Minister of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, Parliamentary Secretary, Dr. Pauline Prosper, Ministry of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, Honorable Kenson Casimir, Parliamentary Representative for Grosley, Ministers of Education from across the region, Dr. Marcia Porter, Deputy Chair of the Caribbean Examinations Council, Professor Paloma Mohamed Martin, Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, Ms. Michelle Charles, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, and CXC Council Member. Other distinguished council members and permanent secretaries joining online, Dr. Wayne Wesley, Registrar and CEO of the Caribbean Examinations Council, Dr. Eduardo Ali, Pro Registrar and Deputy CEO, Caribbean Examination Council joining online, Dr. Nicole Manning, Director of Operations, CXC, Mrs. Sherry Deslandes, Director of Corporate Services, CXC, Mr. Kwesi Marshall, Financial Controller, CXC, Reverend Tui Nuku Smith, Superintendent Minister of St. Lucia Circuit of the Methodist Church, Dr. Merle St. Clair, Vice Principal of Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, Mr. Dawson Ragunanan, Deputy Chief Education Officer, Instruction, Ms. Carmelita Matthew, CXC Local Registrar, St. Lucia, CXC Local Registrars from across the region joining us online, CXC staff, Mr. Jermaine Anthony, Technical Specialist Education, OECS, Ministry of Education staff in St. Lucia and Ministry of Education across the region, teachers, parents, students, media representatives, and other representatives joining us in person or virtually via Zoom, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, I bid you a hearty good morning. Education is the great growth industry of the third world. These were the words of St. Lucia Nobel Laureate in Economics, Sir William Arthur Lewis. Today, we are in company to assess the gains of our collective education system across some 20 Caribbean states in the foreground of normalizing our education operations post a pandemic. On this 5th day of September 2022, I extend the hospitality of all of St. Lucia for the official release of the 2022 May-June examination results. Permit me to introduce our welcome speaker, Ms. Michelle S. Charles, Permanent Secretary, is currently within the Ministry of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, with overall responsibility for the Departments of Education, Innovation, and Vocational Training. Ms. Charles has been serving at this ministry from 2016. Her career as a public servant spans 34 years and began in 1988 when she joined the staff of the Meteorology Office. Since then, she has held key responsibilities in the Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Legal Affairs. Ms. Charles graduated with distinction from the University of Westminster, London, and holds a Master of Arts in International Business and Management. Her undergraduate degree was completed at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus, where she majored in management studies. Her passion for international business and education prompted her to accept the position of facilitator in the undergraduate program of the University of the West Indies in the Open Campus for the period 2007 to 2018. There, she served first as an EEL tutor and then as a course coordinator. She also provided her services to the Small Enterprise Development Unit within the Ministry of Commerce, assisting young entrepreneurs, small and medium-sized businesses with the refinement of these business plans and providing training support. She started her own small consultancy business and most recently set up a small business out of her fluid art hobby. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, help me welcome Ms. Michelle Charles.
Thank you very much, Ms. Malzer. Honorable Minister, kindly permit me to adopt the protocol that has already been established. However, thank you. I would still like to recognize the persons at the head table, especially our Honorable Minister of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, Honorable Sean Edward, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, Dr. Pauline Prosper, Antoine Prosper, Dr. Wayne Wesley, Registrar and CEO of the Caribbean Examinations Council, and Dr. Nicole Manuel, Director of Operations, Examination Services Division of CXC. Bonjour et bienvenue à cette lycée. Good morning and welcome to St. Lucia for the official release of the 2022 CXC results. It is not every day that St. Lucia gets to play host to our friends from the Caribbean Examinations Council, and so I humbly welcome Dr. Wesley and his team to our shores. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Ministry of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, I welcome all of you, those right here in this space, and the others watching virtually, to the 2022 CXC Release of Results ceremony. This event is a staple on the CXC calendar, and St. Lucia is honored to have been identified as the location for this year's event. As we go through the morning's program, Dr. Nicole Manning, Director of Operations, Examination Services Division, will deliver a presentation on the 2022 examination administration and results. Remarks will be delivered by Dr. Wayne Wesley, Registrar and CEO of the Caribbean Examinations Council, and the feature address will be delivered by the Minister of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, the Honorable Sean Edward. As we take time to reflect on the performances of our students during this 2022 cycle, let us step in their shoes for a minute. Our students have worked diligently and tirelessly to get to this critical juncture along the educational journey. We can all attest to the fact that it hasn't been smooth sailing. The effects of the COVID-19 pandemic affected this cadre of students pretty much the same way as it did the students of the class of 2020 and 2021. And though our systems and processes may have improved since 2020, the psychological trauma brought on by less contact hours, learning loss, and other psychosocial factors really placed our students under immense pressure. But as the saying goes, diamonds are created under pressure. And we all know that diamonds shine brightly. So today, we aren't just gathered here for the analysis of performances, but also to recognize and applaud our diamonds for shining through and overcoming in the face of adversity. Today, thousands of students across the Caribbean who wrote the 2022 CXC examinations anxiously await their results, counting down the hours to 6 p.m. Whatever the outcome, be it outstanding results or can be improved results, you must be commended, students, for your commitment to go through the journey that took you to this end. Let me congratulate all of you for your efforts, for overcoming, for your dedication, and for your resilience. We are so proud of you. So too are your family members and your countries. And I wish you only the best as you journey into whatever the future holds for you. Colleagues, we all play a critical role in ensuring student success, and this is not a responsibility to be taken lightly. As we today commence a new academic year, I encourage you to ensure that your actions, be it in policy, governance, operations, or assessments, are aligned with the requirements for graduating successful students. With these words, I welcome you to this morning's ceremony, and for our visitors, I do hope that you get an opportunity to take in some of our island, some of our sites, and the warm St. Lucian hospitality. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Charles, for your welcome. I suppose in the virtual world, everyone feels a little warmer having heard your voice and your remarks. So let's get into the crook of the matter, and we proceed with the examination, administration, and presentation of results, which will be done by Dr. Nicole Manning. Dr. Manning is Director of Operations, Examination Services of the Caribbean Examination Council. Dr. Manning's extensive experience in the field of education and assessment has equipped her with the necessary tools to strategically manage the development of education examination services. Dr. Manning possesses a Doctor of Education in Organization Leadership with the Nova Southeastern University in Florida, a Master of Science in Computer-Based Management Information Systems, and a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry and Management from the University of the West Indies, Mona. She also holds a postgraduate diploma in education with the University of Technology and a postgraduate certificate in risk management from the Institute of Risk Management in the United Kingdom. Dr. Manning is an industry professional with over 20 years of regional and international management experience in diverse industries, from test development and management to quality assurance and strategic management. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Manning.
Before I commence, I must say that I truly enjoyed the singing this morning of the anthem. I felt St. Lucian for a moment. The anthem was almost massaged. I felt like I was born here. I just felt everything. You know, I'm really appreciative of it. It has caused me to feel so relaxed in St. Lucia. So thank you. Moderator Chairperson, Ms. Malzer. That's another thing I must say of St. Lucia before I forget. I love the accent, I love the French, but of course I'm English. So if I make any mistakes, my apologies from now. So I don't like to spoil people's names, but I'm happy that the others seem a little bit easier to pronounce, but I will proceed. So Chairperson, Ms. Malzer, our Honorable Minister of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, Honorable Sean Edward, Parliamentary Secretary, Dr. Pauline Prosper, Minister of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, our Permanent Secretary, Ms. Michelle Charles, and Dr. Wayne Wesley, Registrar and CEO of CXC. Our stakeholders, university, colleges, local registrars across the region, our candidates, parents, well-wishers, let me say good morning. Let me first begin by saying thank you, a big thank you to the staff of only a little over 130 plus. I'm not sure a lot of persons know that CXC's staff is approximately 130 plus members across 2 territories we sit in, Jamaica as well as Barbados. And I must say, I'm only standing here, and I know the registrar will get into the details, but I'm only standing here as one body of that 130 plus. And I am telling you, we are thanking God for carrying us thus far. We had a delay of 3 weeks. We promised the region to deliver, and we are at this time only because we're doing it together. So let me say thank you to everyone, the staff members, but I'm not going to go any further because I know my registrar is going to go into this depth. I can rely on him for that. I don't have to worry about that part. But I just wanted to give my little thank you, because this presentation would not have been possible otherwise. I must say staff has been up to students, 5 o'clock this morning, 6 o'clock. Some of them have not slept, just to make sure that everything is done. So thank God. Let me proceed. They told me to click right. Not seeing anything going, but tell me if I'm doing something wrong. Okay, servant. This is one of the names I can't pronounce. Joshua, he says. Thank you, Lord. Okay, great. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so today I'm going to just briefly, as quickly as best as possible, to go through the presentation as we have it. One, to give you a background in relation to what would have happened in the May-June 2022 examinations, and then the regional results, followed by the results particularly for St. Lucia. I must first give some context to 2022. In 2022, we again saw a reduction in the requirements for the school-based assessment by as much as 50%. We also, as I mentioned previously, delayed the examinations by 3 weeks. Subsequently, previously we would have given a 6 weeks delay or extension, you may say, for the submission of the SBAs. We agreed for the release of topics for paper 2. We also, again, had the deferral of candidates, but this time around, candidates could defer up to the day before the examinations. So the context of 2022 examinations is as described. So for the administration, firstly, I will go through the CAPE and CSEC, that's the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination, as well as the Caribbean Secondary Examination Certificate. So for registration this year, we saw a decline in relation to the candidates' registration, and the candidate registration, particularly for CAPE, in relation to the subject entries, where we also saw a decline. I must say that heartening for us, and I'm sure for the centers and the ministries of education, is that where we saw an increase in terms of the number of candidates presenting themselves for examinations, which means that we saw a reduction in absenteeism. And that is a very good signal for us, because it tells us that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and some level of returning to normalcy. For CSEC, we also saw a reduction for the candidate entries, but we saw an increase for the subject entries. And this is telling us, as I said before, that more candidates may be applying to registering, I should say, to do more of our examinations, which is also good in terms of their preparation for higher education, as well as for the world of work. I must say also that while we would have had that reduction in terms of the absenteeism, well, not while, we would have had the reduction for the absenteeism for CSEC, we also saw an increase, for CSEC. Unfortunate for that. Now, for the administration, yes, we had the 3-week delay, which of course we saw varied responses from, and I would say specifically our candidates and our parents, because this is where the core of it really is, in the homes. And we saw where some candidates would have been very happy because they would have gotten increased time to prepare for examinations, while others would have been concerned about the delayed results for matriculation in higher education institutions. But of course, the Caribbean Examinations Council would have put systems in place to facilitate those candidates, and so they were able to apply and request for their results to be sent to universities, requiring same a bit earlier. So those candidates would have requested for their transcripts to be sent to universities, especially those in the UK and the US, which starts a little bit earlier than us, pretty much in August. But those results would have been sent to those universities for which they applied in last week. That would be the 1st of September. So their preliminary results would have been sent to the universities, not to the candidates. I must say that this is good because this is where we are talking about collaboration. CXC also went as far as to write to all of the universities, whether or not candidates would have asked, just to remind them that we would have delayed examinations by 3 weeks, and we were asking them to take into consideration this matter and to really facilitate our candidates who would be receiving results a bit later, which would be the last week in August, we promised, to the first week in September. I must say that of concern to the Caribbean Examinations Council at the time would have been the risk of paper security, because we would have already released the papers to our local registrars. But I must say a special thanks to our local registrars who had that responsibility. And even though we would have had some of the subjects that would have commenced, they managed it very well. So a big thank you to our local registrars who they have to do that work within the various territories. Go ahead and give them a round of applause. So we would have had some subjects that would have started, for example, the modern languages, we would have had orals commencing, visual arts and art and design, the physical education and sport, and music. There's nothing we could have done about this, but as I said before, well handled. The Caribbean Examinations Council we saw where even though we would have given the extended deadline in relation to the submission of SBAs, in some cases, we still had non-submission of SBAs. We are not happy about this. I'll speak a little bit more about this in a little while, but it's something that we are encouraging our territories to give a deeper look into so that we can see that kind of improvement. However, overall, we must say that the various issues would have been resolved to facilitate a general smooth running of examinations and to the mitigation against candidates being disadvantaged generally. Electronic testing. Of course, as we move into this direction and in preparation for what we would want to see in January 2023, all candidates doing at least the first component, the paper 1, electronically. We did have ongoing training for ministry officials and chief invigilators in 2022. Yes, we did see challenges experienced with internet access, power outages, incorrect version of the secure browser being downloaded, but none affecting candidates negatively. The good thing is that we saw an increase in the utilization by territories, and I'd like to share a bit of statistics with you. So for Cape, we saw a 76% increase over 2021, a 24% increase for CSEC, and a 22% for the CCSLC. Now, this is very good. In particular, we had 2 territories where we saw an increase moving from about little over 100 to over 1,400 candidates sitting, utilizing the electronic testing. Likewise, another 100 to over 400. So it tells us that together we are moving in this direction. Now, for the school-based assessment, I would like to share a bit more. Yes, we would have continued our SBA sessions with our teachers, and we will continue this. This is something of interest to the Caribbean Examinations Council as we work together with our teachers and centers and territories. We must say, even with the extensions, that we would have gone even past the time. So we would have publicized an extension for July. I must say to St. Lucia and the rest of the region that we accepted school-based assessments even much later as we worked with the local registrars, in the sense that where there were problems with the centers uploading, we tried our very best to ensure that we addressed that. So, of course, interventions to continue in 2022-2023 as we work with the educational system to improve in this particular area. While you're looking on screen, you'll see a comparison for the SBA records across the 2018-2022 period. And this year, we had a 94.45% submission of SBA records. Now, that has a twofold component. You have to submit the SBAs as well as the scores have to be included. So submission of your SBAs without scores, of course, that equals to a delay. But not only that, it also equals to the possibility of a candidate being ungraded. So that's where the additional work comes in. We saw where 4,838 candidates did not submit the SBA to the teachers at all. So that means it did not reach the CXC any at all. And that represents a 5.02%. While a reduction over 2021, it still is a cause for concern because it's far more than what we would have seen in the previous years, 2018, 19, and 20. For CSEC, likewise, we saw a reduction in terms of the records not submitted to the teachers, But a whopping 25,967, I would say, is still something as an educational system across the region we do not want to see. One student left behind is one too many. The 93.23% that's recorded in terms of the SBA submission, while over the previous period, is still less than previous years. So we'd like to encourage our teachers and candidates, students, parents across the region as we look forward to a new academic year, which in my understanding starts today in St. Lucia and various times across the region. Let us work together. And of course, it is the Caribbean Examinations Council's intention to be meeting with various stakeholder groups, especially over the September, October to November period, to ensure that preparation for 2023. I must say that 2022 examinations, we did see a few irregularities and what we call hardships. Now, the irregularities are where we see the issues of cheating, collusion, cell phone usage. It is something that, as you notice, my face would have changed because this is not something you want to happen. But it happens, and it's the only thing we can do at this point is to encourage our candidates to take note of what is not to be done. But we will see. It's an opportunity for the 2023 group to take note of it and to improve. So we do know that this is going to happen. I must say, however, that the cell phone usage was probably, I would say, of this 37 total, maybe 90 or 80% of what would have happened. It means that students, what I'm speaking about is possession on person, yeah? So that is very important to note. And please, as a practice, even in your assessments, have the students practice to sit the exams without those cell phones. So we did see a reduction for CAPE, a very minus 80%, which is very, very good. Unfortunately for CSEC, we are seeing a 75% increase, bringing us to an overall 23% increase for irregularities. Hardships. Hardships is where you may have situations of death in a child's family, the death sometimes of a parent. Candidates may have contracted COVID or any other illness. We do take this into consideration, and the candidates are not disadvantaged in any way. We offer what is called an assessed grade, and the candidates are graded. For CAPE, we saw an increase of 25%, and for CSEC, a reduction of 57%, overall reduction of 48%. Another signal of returning to some level of normalcy. This is good for the region, as I'm sure, Minister, that we are having more candidates going back to face-to-face for this academic year. So for the results for 2022, as you would have known in previous years, I'm not sure if I need to go through this, but it is our varied examinations which I'll share with you, and the grades, module grades for CAPE, profile grades for CSEC, mastery competent for CCSLC, CVQ competent, not yet competent, and the CPA, which of course for the first time St. Lucia would have been involved in for the CPA. So for CAPE, our grading system, of course, from grade 1 to 6, we have the Caribbean, right, sorry about that. So Caribbean Studies, I will start with the Caribbean Studies where we would have seen a reduction in 2022 in the performance regarding grades 1, overall constant, and we would have seen a reduction also in grades 2, but stable for 3 and increase in 4 and 5. Remembering that grades 1 to 5 are acceptable grades for CAPE. For communication studies, the overall performance for communication studies is 94%, a reduction over, 92%, a reduction over the previous year. We saw a reduction for CAPE 1 for grades 1 and 2, but stable for grades 3 and an increase for 4 and 5. I must pause briefly to make mention of just one point for the communication studies. Just an encouragement for greater focus for the 2023 group as we look at what happens in relation to the candidates in terms of the message creation. So I just want to give you a little pop on that. We will, Caribbean Examinations Council, we are looking at having a bigger forum where we will share the depth of what we would have seen in some of these areas. But we want to encourage the candidates to use the subject reports, exemplars in particular, because it's everything pulled together, where you can see examples of good responses from candidates. And that is placed on our Learning Hub. And I must say, if you visit the Learning Hub, you'll see all of those details. So this is very important, and I really want to make sure that I put that plug there. Information Technology, Unit 1, we saw a reduction for both grades 1 and 2, an increase for 3 onwards to 5, and an overall reduction for Unit 1. However, for Unit 2, we saw an overall increase to 96%, and also for the grades 1 through to grades 2, and a reduction from 3 to 5. Additionally, for Food and Nutrition, Unit 1, we would have seen no grade 1s for Food and Nutrition Unit 1, an overall reduction, but for Unit 2, we would have seen an increase to 4% of grades 1 and an overall increase of 97%. So grades 1 and 2 would have, consistent with Information Technology Unit 2. For Law, we saw a stability there for the grades 1, an increase for Unit 2 and Unit 3, stability at 4, and a reduction at 5. So we are seeing an overall all-time high for Law Unit 1 at 93%. For Unit 2, likewise stable, similar to 2021, a reduction for Unit 1, for grades 1, but an increase for grades 2 and a reduction for grade 3. For Physics Unit 1, while we saw an increase, over 2021, it was a reduction over previous years, but I must say for grades 2 and, of course, our overall performance, we would have seen an increase for Physics Unit 1. Likewise, for Physics Unit 2, we would have seen an increase for the grades 1 to 32% and an overall increase of 98% for the performance in physics. So that gives you a taste of what we saw in CAPE. Of course, there are many subjects here, so I would not go through all of them. And likewise, I will do a sampling of the CSEC results. So kudos to the CAPE candidates and good job as you went through. For CSEC, of course, acceptable grades 1 to 3. I will start with English A. English A, where we saw stability at grades 1 at 19%, and a reduction for grades 2 and 3 and overall performance. For English B, we saw an increase for grades 1 also and grades 2, and a reduction for grade 3, but an overall increase from 63% last year to 72%. For biology, We saw a 26% increase in grades 1 and 2, a 26% performance for grades 1 and 2, and an overall performance to 78% for our candidates across the region. Chemistry. Chemistry, we saw an overall reduction to 59%. And while, of course, we saw an increase at grades 3, we saw a reduction at grades 1 and 2. Now, chemistry, of course, like biology, but more so, a very practical and hands-on subject. So we are looking, as we go back to face-to-face, some improvements in this area, because those components where we saw the reduction, I believe, would have been a major alignment with the fact that candidates would have been out. But of course, that's a longitudinal study, not for me at this moment. For physics, we saw a 23% stability there for 2021, a reduction from 67 to 64%. For integrated science, stability there, overall performance of 67%, as well as stability at grade 1. We saw a reduction at grade 3, but of course an improvement at grade 2. That's integrated science. For mathematics, we saw a reduction for the grades 1 and 2, but for stability at grade 3. Overall, we saw a reduction for the performance to 37%. Principle of accounts, we saw an increase, 69%, not only overall, but for grades 1 and 2, and stability at grade 3. Principle of business, likewise, we saw an overall performance increase to 80%, and we saw an increase at both grades 2 and 3, and a slight reduction at grade 1. Geography, we saw a reduction at grade 1, but of course, and synonymously, grades 2, 3, and overall performance. Social studies, an overall reduction from grades 1 through to 3, as well as the overall performance. French, we saw a similar performance, and I must say for human and social biology, because it is our first year for the school-based assessment, we would have seen, yes, slight reduction in the overall performance, but an increase at grades 2 and 3, right? So we did see where we saw some impact there from the SBAs. For St. Lucia, CSEC, for the sciences, we saw an overall improvement for biology for St. Lucia from 80% to 82%, while we saw a reduction in chemistry in line with the region. We saw an increase for human and social biology and integrated science, 91% and 79% for the performance, so that's very good, and a 61% reduction for physics. For mathematics and information technology, while we saw a reduction for math as well as information technology, we saw an increase for additional mathematics. For the humanities, we saw a reduction for social studies, geography, and English B as well as English A. For technical and vocational subjects, such as the industrial, tech, building, and so on, while we saw a reduction for the technical drawing, we saw an increase for the industrial technology, electrical, and a reduction for building. Home economics, for family and resource management, we saw 100% per overall acceptable grades for family resource, 90% for food, nutrition, and health, as well as 65% for textile, clothing, and fashion. For business, we saw an increase in the principle of business performance, as well as office administration and economics topping at 90%, over 84% for last year. Cape 1. We will say we saw a 100% acceptable grades for physics, Also 95% performance stable with over the previous 2021, and of course keeping it high from 2019-2020, and a 90%, while a reduction for chemistry over 2021, far more than 2019 and 2020. So that's very good still. For mathematics and information technology, while we saw a reduction in applied math, we saw a stable 100% acceptable grades for information technology, a reduction for pure math, but an increase of 55% for integrated mathematics. For the humanities, while we saw a reduction for communication studies and Caribbean studies in line with the region, history, law, we saw a 100% performance overall, grade of 1 to 5 for both history and law. Very good. Sociology also, we saw 96%. Thank you. Business, this is where you had a 100% performance for all your business subjects right across, yes. Well done. Accounting, economics, entrepreneurship, management of business. For Cape 2, I will say this was also very good for the sciences, all three, biology, chemistry, and physics. You had a 100% performance for biology and physics, and for chemistry, more than last year. In fact, the most over the last 4 years at 94%. For mathematics and information technology, 89% for applied math, consistent 100%, similar to over the last 4 years for information technology, and 85%, 1% more than last year. For the humanities, for Cape 2, 100% acceptable grades for history and sociology, and in line with the region, 95%, and I would indeed say that looks like 11% more than last year. For business, again, Cape 2 did just as well as the Cape 1 candidates, where you saw 100% acceptable grades across all 4 subjects. Very good for Cape 2. I think you need to clap St. Lucia. In Jamaica, we had just a little pause here. We had Miss Lou, and she would say, clap yourself. Yeah? So it means you, of course, you have to look at what you have done and say, well done to the candidates. They worked hard. For CCSLC, that is our Caribbean Certificate of Secondary Level Competence, we saw a reduction in candidate and subject entries. We also, however, saw, in line with CSEC, a reduction in the absentees. For the comparative candidate entries across the board, we saw an increase for the most part, except for sociology and mathematics and English. I must say, for the performance, we did see quite a bit of increase in that orange line, which shows mastery, and more so in the middle section that is reflective of the candidates in terms of their competence. For CPA, it is the first time that the Ministry of Education would have engaged in the Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment that CXC offers. So you have joined the many other countries, as you are seeing on screen, territories that offer the CPA. And the CPA, of course, has a 6-component school-based and 4 external examination components. The candidate entry, as you are seeing on screen, of course, for St. Lucia being the first time, you have a whopping little bit over 2,000, the greatest across the region, actually. For the external assessment performance, while we saw a slight reduction for language, we saw an increase in mathematics, We saw likewise for study, I would say for social studies, but a little reduction in the scientific component. So it's new for St. Lucia, and I must say that this is an area that we will, of course, we would have provided further details for the ministry, especially in these 4 components. Item analysis, we give you individual performance by literacy, the distribution for the external components, as well as the frequency distribution for the composites. Let me quickly move to the final area, the Caribbean vocational qualifications for this session. In 2022, we would have had 2,257 candidates registered across 56 occupational areas. That was a slight reduction over 2021. Now, you must remember that the Caribbean vocational qualification is a very practical subject qualification, and so it requires a lot of involvement of the candidates. So we do expect to see an increase as we go back face to face. So yes, that is representative of what we would have seen across the region. Entries by territories are shown on screen, and we must say congratulations to Guyana, where they are now doing the Caribbean vocational qualifications for the first time, and of course we do encourage St. Lucia to join. The territories by gender are represented there, and you must note that the most popular occupational areas remain with commercial, food prep being among them, data operations, of course, electrical installation, general cosmetology, and of course, metalwork engineering. We must say for this year, so far, because the assessment is done throughout the year, and given COVID, we had some flexibility where the region was concerned, so we work with the ministries and we facilitate the audits at different times. So these are all preliminary results, but a little bit more preliminary than the Cape, CSEC, and CCSLC and CPA, because audits still continue. They have not been finished. So right now we would be at 77 of the candidates receiving their transcripts and 24 full CVQ. But not to worry, we do expect the numbers to go up. So let me say thank you again to the staff, the local registrars, the candidates' parents, teachers, our chief examiners, well, I should say assistant chief examiners who make up our examining committees, universities, colleges, and everyone who would have put everything into this to make sure that we were able to deliver on all of our products. Again, thank you very much.
I guess all will agree how fluid and how confident you are with the body of knowledge. And the region is thankful to you for your empathy, your wisdom, and your fortitude in your function of duties at the Caribbean Examinations Council. We thank you. We now move our attention to hearing from the Registrar and CEO of CXC, Dr. Wayne Wesley. At the 50th meeting in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Wayne Wesley was appointed as Registrar and Chief Executive Officer of the Caribbean Examination Council and has done so till this moment. Dr. Wesley is passionate about regional integration and development, particularly in the fostering of human capital development through education and training. His professional experience of almost 30 years spans industrial engineering, technical education, consultancies, strategic leadership, and executive management. His strategic vision is to reposition and transform CXC into a regional enterprise for greater regional impact. Prior to joining CXC, Dr. Wesley provided strategic leadership and governance for the largest trust fund and training agency in the Caribbean as Executive Director of the Human Employment and Resource Training Trust National Training Agency in Jamaica. He also served as Chairman of the Caribbean Association of National Training Authorities. Dr. Wesley holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Industrial Engineering from Florida State University and has completed postgraduate studies at Columbia University, obtaining certification for professional achievement covering critical issues in international relations. He has successfully completed executive education programs at Harvard University and Manchester Business School in innovation and leading economic growth and advanced management, respectively. In 2003, he became a Fulbright Scholar. Dr. Wesley is a Charter Manager and Fellow of the Chartered Management Institute of the United Kingdom and a Fellow of the American Society of Quality. Confident and distinguished, we warmly welcome Dr. Wayne Wesley to share his remarks.
There we go. Is the light hitting me correctly? I mean, good morning, ladies. Oh, sorry. It would be remiss of me not to speak in the St. Lucian Creole and say, bonjour. Est-vous bien? You see, it is indeed a pleasure for me to be here with the people, the government and people of St. Lucia, to share and release the official results of the Caribbean examinations May-June sitting. But before I do, I want to acknowledge our Master of Ceremony, as well as our Honorable Minister, Shaw Edward, Minister of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, such a wide and expansive portfolio, Minister. I can understand why you do have a parliamentary secretary and a permanent secretary, and perhaps another junior minister. Parliamentary Secretary, Dr. Pauline Prosper, Ministry of Education and Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training. Mrs. Kenston Casimir, Parliamentary Representative. Mr., sorry. My apologies, Mr. Dr. Marcia Potter, Deputy Chair of the Caribbean Examinations Council, Professor Paloma Martin, Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, Ms. Michelle Charles, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, as well as a council member, other distinguished members of council, and I think the Minister of Youth is also here. No? Oh, okay. Oh, I called your name already. So you're the Mr. I see. That's the challenge. Okay. Well, that is why I'm perhaps acknowledging you twice, right? It's good because this is a youthful occasion. Other distinguished members of council, our Pro-Registrar and Deputy CEO, Dr. Eduardo Ali, Dr. Nicole Manning, our Director of Operations, and I'm still feeling my heart moving. I'm trusting that you are okay, because I know I have to give an account to your husband when next I see him. Mrs. Sherry Dislandes, our Director of Corporate Services, Mr. Kwesi Marshall, our Financial Controller, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, Those listening to us on the internet, good morning, bonjour. Bonjour, si. I'm getting it wrong now? Bon? Oh, bon. Bonjour. Perhaps Wagwan is better. Wagwan. Yes. But indeed, it's a privilege, an honor for us to join you this morning for the official release of results for the May-June 2022 examination sitting. This year, the world continued to adapt to the ripple effects of COVID-19 pandemic. I am pleased, therefore, that we are able to join our partners and stakeholders in St. Lucia as we mark this momentous occasion for our candidates who have completed the Caribbean Examination Proficiency examinations, our Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate, and our Caribbean Certificate of Secondary Level Competence. I am thankful to the Honorable Sean Edwards, Minister of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, and the team from the Ministry of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training for agreeing graciously to CXC for coordinating today's official release of results ceremony with our corporate communication team. And this time, I'm not going to get it wrong. And so, to the government and people of St. Lucia, in your St. Lucian Creole, merci. CXC is committed to our people and shaping our future. Despite the challenges we encountered this year, CXC has delivered on its commitment to the people of the region to present results today. This commitment was possible because of the collective will and efforts of stakeholders within the region. All of us understanding our responsibility and executing accordingly. We understand that the dreams and aspirations of the young people of this region rest with us and demand that we work collaboratively to support their ambitions. Together, we work in moving and supporting this ambition. To do this, we cannot at no time seek to be confrontational, but instead, we have to work collaboratively, moving forward, working together. Working together with the ministries of education, working together with the local registrars, working together with the examinations committee, working together with the technical advisory committee, working together with the principals, working together with the teachers, working together with the parents, working together with the markers and moderators for the examinations. CXC doesn't see itself as an entity in and of itself, but rather a regional enterprise that is comprised of all these stakeholders I have named just a moment ago. We could not have achieved what we have achieved this year without the collective support of all these stakeholders. We would have been working collectively to ensure that confidence and trust return to the system that is used to validate the performance of our students. I want to say to our students this afternoon that regardless of the grade you receive, it is only a moment in time, and it does not define your final destiny. Whatever you achieve now, it is preparing you for greater things to come. This initiation is igniting within you a passion for greatness, one that you will only achieve with constant dedication and commitment to your purpose in life. Some of us, as we grew up, our parents did not benefit from the education that we have received, but they have given their commitment, they have given their support to you to ensure that you have moments like these. And it is moments like these that you must capitalize on in showing that you are born for greatness. Education represents the key for transformation for most of us. Your dreams, your aspirations is important to be fostered, to be nurtured, and despite setbacks, knowing that every setback is a setup for a greater comeback. And you can achieve despite what is happening around us. COVID-19 tests us, our resolve, our resilience, but we stood in moments of great difficulty in ensuring that the region did have an examination to sit. In that regard, I wish you all the best, and we will continue at the Caribbean Examinations Council to ensure that a nation that ought to be developed must be fostered through education and training. And we are currently working to ensure that we continue to provide opportunities for students to self-actualize and become their best self. We are concerned that there are a great number of students leaving the education system without certification. Consequently, we have designed our Citizenship and Technical Education Certificate, CTEC, which is currently being piloted in Montserrat and some other countries like Jamaica and Guyana who are very interested in piloting that program. But that program is geared towards inculcating strong moral character and life skills, technical skills that will equip our graduates with the skills necessary to perform in society. We are preparing students for the 21st century to take advantage of the economic opportunities that will come, and in so doing, experience a better quality of life. Your dreams, your aspirations is what we are facilitating at the Caribbean Examinations Council. And all our efforts, the staff, the council, the ministry, all of us are working together to ensure that we move forward in your interest, facilitating your dreams and aspirations. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Registrar. As the custodian of our students' records, we continue to entrust you with ensuring that all our students leaving the education system are certified so that they may be able to access a better quality of life. We have heard it mentioned many a times. The next speaker has by far what could be considered the heaviest portfolio. And today's feature address will be delivered by our Honorable Sean Edward, Minister with responsibility for education, sustainable development, innovation, science, technology, and vocational training. Honorable Edward is the parliamentary representative for Dennery North for over a decade. He has served his country in a previous stint as the Minister with responsibility for youth development and sports. Fortunately for our education system in St. Lucia, Honorable Sean Edward fully understands the education landscape and has been both a primary and secondary level teacher. He's a graduate of Leicester University and holds a Master of Science in Risk, Crisis, and Disaster Management. He also holds a bachelor's degree from the University of London in the area of Information Systems and Management. Ladies and gentlemen, your feature address will be presented by Honorable Sean Edward. Help me welcome him.
Thank you very much, Ms. Malze. I was discussing with Dr. Pauline Antoine Prosper what grade should we give Dr. Wesley given his performance on the oral exam as far as our Creole is concerned. Our students complain bitterly that CXC has not been fair to them in the grades ascribed on the various oral examinations. And I sat there and I watched Dr. Wesley. But it's a conversation that he and I will have after the formal proceedings. And maybe that can inform the process going forward. Permit me to use a truncated version of the established protocol. Minister for Youth Development and Sports and Parliamentary Representative for the constituency of Gruzili, the Honorable Kenson Casimir and Kenson Ismail. Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Dr. Pauline Antoine Prosper. Colleague Ministers of Education joining virtually. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Ms. Michelle Charles. Registrar and CEO of CXC, Dr. Wayne Wesley. Dr. Nicole Manning and other technical personnel from CXC. Reverend Turi Nuku Smith, education officers, principals, teachers, students, well-wishers, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you from abroad, I bid you all a warm welcome to St. Lucia, our beautiful St. Lucia that is, for the release of the 2022 CXC results. It is indeed an honor to host you, our friends from the Caribbean Examinations Council. When the request was made for St. Lucia to host this year's release of the results, there was no hesitation in responding in the affirmative. Today's release of the 2022 results reflects a triumph for the Caribbean Examinations Council. The Caribbean Examinations Council is an institution which has trialed and endured, and in the face of all adversity, is still able to demonstrate resilience, adaptability, and clear vision in its approach to assessment and qualification in the region. The history of CXC is rich. The future, however, needs to be sustained. As a region, on a broad scale, we are proud of our premier assessment institution. The rumblings in smaller circles, however, are not unnoticed. The COVID-19 experience most definitely placed the CXC under even closer scrutiny as the actions taken to ensure the continued assessment of the region's students were decried. But at the end of each cycle, when results are released, everyone breathes a sigh of relief, with that of our students being most audible. Many have questioned the actions of the Caribbean Examinations Council. It has been posited that the council at times has been insensitive to the plight of students and teachers, especially during the COVID pandemic. This, however, did not deter the council from moving ahead, ensuring that each cohort of students was in a position to write their exams in the year of their graduation, further allowing them to matriculate into higher learning institutions without delay. We won't dwell on all the alleged shortcomings of the CXC, but instead let us as a region focus on the takeaways for CXC's determined push for annual examinations during the pandemic. For decades, our education systems continue with the usual, very familiar approaches to instruction and learning, using the same old tools with little innovation and no revolutionary changes. The Caribbean Examinations Council, even before COVID-19, recognized the benefits of leveraging technology for assessments. Hence the push towards embracing the e-testing modality. For many of us, this transition to e-testing would have taken quite a while given the prohibitive cost nature of equipping our schools with the devices and the supporting infrastructure necessary to facilitate these exams. Then came 2020 and the global pandemic, which left many nations floundering in all sectors, with education being no exception. Decisions had to be made about assessment in the region. In the face of much objection, the Caribbean Examinations Council held steadfastly to its position on the need to continue with examinations. After much dialogue, adjustments, and adaptation, the Caribbean Examinations Council was successful in the rollout of the 2020, 2021, and now 2022 regional examinations. But what did this signal to the governments and education administrators of our region? The COVID-19 pandemic placed our education systems in sharp focus. And while many of us were at our own pace, slowly integrating technology into education, we found ourselves thrust into a position of moving swiftly to find the resources needed to accommodate e-testing on a much broader scale. Today, in 2022, we can all agree that e-testing is here to stay. Not only due to great financial investments made by regional governments in devices and supporting infrastructure, but also because this is the global trajectory. The added benefit of the provision of an electronic certificate to our students makes the next steps, be it higher education or employment, so much smoother and quicker. As we return our educational institutions to some form of normalcy, we recognize that leveraging technology for instruction, learning, and assessment will be a part of this new normal. There are other positives which emanated from the impact of COVID-19 on our regional assessments. One plus was the manner in which our tertiary level institutions became creative and innovative. The later September release of results pushed our colleges to become innovative as they sought to continue with their selection and recruitment of their students without compromising the integrity of their offerings or the quality of student experience. We observed the introduction of pre-college testing in order to continue with the traditional September intake. This entry requirement testing facilitated the enrollment of students into their programs while they awaited the CXC results. At our local Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, for example, students who were not successful at the entrance exam were placed in a pre-college program. These students automatically constitute a cohort or catchment for the next academic year. Colleges also started considering a January intake, as has been established in places like the United States of America and Europe. This can only augur well for our students, as more of them now get the opportunity to access higher education, given the additional entry points for accessing tertiary level education. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I highlight these two areas to illustrate that even the darkest of clouds has a silver lining. The decisions made by the Caribbean Examinations Council had the ripple effect of causing governments to invest in information and communication technologies for education on a larger scale. Of course, the integration of ICT in education has been on everyone's agenda and was slowly being introduced to the education system. However, the CXC COVID experience forced governments to invest much sooner than they had anticipated. This move augurs well for student success. Colleagues, it is also noteworthy that across the world, governments are placing greater emphasis on technical and vocational education. The Caribbean Examinations Council must be commended for the continued efforts at introducing the programs that will allow for the graduation of students who can contribute to economic development. Skills training is a major contributor to economic growth. Not only has the CXC presented examinations and qualifications to our students at secondary and tertiary levels, but the CXC has also created the opportunity to provide Caribbean vocational qualification certificates, which are recognized the world over. The CVQ sits well with globally accepted matriculation standards. On the horizon is the CTEC initiative, a venture which prioritizes technical and vocational subjects and geared towards eventually graduating future entrepreneurs. Dr. Wesley, as the Minister responsible for education and sustainable development, I am excited about the fact that the Caribbean Examinations Council is constantly reviewing and revising their subject offerings and is including subject areas that are well aligned with the attainment of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These emerging study areas, such as the green economy courses, levels the global playing field for our students. Also, CXC's continued investment in our teachers through capacity building endeavors and their involvement in the development of new and revised syllabi is much appreciated by all on the education landscape. While I am aware that this morning's activity specifically addresses the release of the CXC, CSEC, and CAPE results, I cannot refrain from briefly touching on St. Lucia's Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment, CPEA, experience. St. Lucia, for the first time, administered the CPEA this year. I must indicate that we as a ministry are proud of our students' performances and results. Being a part of the CPEA family means we can undertake a comparative analysis and benchmark our students' performances against that of their peers at the regional level. Our results this year showed that we are competitive and our teachers must be praised for the work that they do. St. Lucia has boarded the CPEA train, and we are pleased with our first outing. Let me focus my attention on the thousands of students across the region who wrote this year's CSEC and CAPE examinations. We understand your struggles. The psychosocial impact of COVID-19 would have left many of you feeling unprepared for your exams. In many instances, you may have felt that you hadn't covered enough of the topics to be successful, and in other circumstances, the health protocols limited the engagement you should have had with your teachers and your peers. Still, you persevered and showed up when you had to. Your success today speaks to your resilience, your commitment, and your ability to adapt, and for this, I must commend you. I wish to congratulate all of you on your outstanding performances this year. Not only have you succeeded, but you have made your family and your country proud. This achievement is another step along your journey, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. As I move to conclude, I must place on the record that the Caribbean Examinations Council has evolved into an institution which is cognizant of the fact that its stakeholders are integral components of its development and sustainability. The governments of the various participating territories have had more dialogue and better communication with CXC in recent times than obtained previously. Dr. Wesley, I am of the view that engagements in recent times have assisted CXC in making pertinent decisions, especially during the onset of the COVID-19 virus. I anticipate that this level of dialogue and inclusion will continue as CXC charts a way forward. Colleagues, our work in education is never easy and never ending. There will forever be challenges, be it with the structure of exams or ORS or decisions made. I am confident, however, in the commitment and stability of the Caribbean Examinations Council to do what is right for the region and ultimately the young people entrusted in the care of our education system. Thank you very much, and let us enjoy the rest of the proceedings.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. At this point, we will be engaging in a symbolic presentation. So I'd like to call back to the front of our stage our Minister for Education, Honorable Sean Edward, and the Registrar for CXC, Dr. Wayne Wesley.
This is our symbolic presentation of this year's results to the Honorable Minister. So, Mr. Photographer, where do you want us? And, you know, the minister just whispered to me and said he's going to give me the result of my oral examination shortly. But I just want to say we have presented the official results to the Honorable Minister, and to say to the students who I know, I can just imagine the level of anticipation that exists, but at 6 p.m. this evening, you can all log on and you'll have access to your results, okay? So don't call the minister now and say, Minister, I see you with the results in your hand, all right? You'll get a chance to see yours at 6 p.m. this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Earlier this morning, Dr. Manning referred to their salute of the national anthem as a soul massage. We welcome back the St. Lucia National Combined School Choir to give us a tease of St. Lucian culture as they present what has been dubbed Royal Medley. May your applause welcome them.
my laddie, why? The wire call. My laddie, why? The wire call. The why toujours. The wire call. If our lives were a movie and we could watch it on TV, we would all be so disgusted in what we see. What does really annoy me are the sins of the family. I would want to direct these episodes differently. For the men who beat up on their wives and have the women fend for their lives, while the children begging for an end to the war. Cut no more, no more, no more. Bring out the joy and laughter. The mother, the father, and the child must be one happy family. One happy family.
Awesome, splendid, just magnificent. Let's put our hands together for them again. And for those of you outside of St. Lucia who are joining us virtually, importantly, you should note that this is a combined choir of primary and secondary school students around St. Lucia, displaying their school uniforms proudly and patriotically. We have now concluded our program. On this Monday, the 5th of September 2022, for the official release of the 2022 May-June examination results at the Grosley Human Resource Development Center in St. Lucia. On behalf of the Ministry of Education, St. Lucia, and all those who support education in our region, I bid you a pleasant balance of a day, and God bless. Have a pleasant day, everyone. Thank you.